you want to reenact that seminar? I was like, hey, here's the... Because the other thing that I do at my fucking jobs, which is the same thing that I did when I worked for Planned Parenthood, was I care so much about the things that I do that I make sure to do them right. So sometimes I'm like, it would be much better if we did it this way. And then they're like, wow, that's actually a great idea. Also, now can you tell everyone about doing that? And can you do a seminar on it? And I'm like, I just work here. I just work here. And so that's what happened at Barnes & Noble. And then when I was at Planned Parenthood, I did it, but I also did it because I wanted to make sure that all of our trans healthcare was set up correctly so that people weren't misgendered or dead named or anything like that. So when I started working at Planned Parenthood, there was I was the check-in person, and when someone would come in, I would call them up with their name that was in the system, which sometimes was dead naming them, and I was like, I'm not about dead naming anybody. And I would have to ask them what their gender is, and I would have to check it against their license, and it just felt very not queer friendly. So while I was there, I was like, okay, I don't want to out people to a waiting room sometimes full of other people that not only are they using a different name or a different gender. So what I did was I made a way in the system for us to have a place where we put a nickname. And then I also made sure that they implemented a new way in the system to have a place where if they had to have biological sex, because they really argued that we needed to have a biological sex in there because we're a doctor's office. Dead naming is when you use someone's name that they used before they transitioned. Or their birth name. Shark Dog, thanks for the 19 months. So while I was there, I was like, we need a system to where we have the gender and identity that they choose to use, and we need to actively use it. So I made sure we did that. And so we had, when I left, the changes that I made were that in the system, there was everybody, even if it was a thing that was already there, they had to start doing it, because there was also people were like, they were like, oh, I just want to check in this person as fast as I can, so I'm not gonna do the extra mile. And I was like, no, we are doing the extra mile. They didn't really do that at the place I worked at, but I know some of the other places did it. And I was like, no, it is the extra mile because it's important. So I had them add a thing where it was, if it was biological sex, then they needed to add also gender identity. And I had them add more to that because we had pronouns. So I was like, we need to have gender identity. So we had male, female, and then we also had if someone wanted to say transmasculine or transfeminine, or if they wanted to say non-binary, or if they wanted other. And then I made sure that we used those. If they had pronouns that were other than she, her, or they, them, or he, him, I had them put in a spot where you could put what pronouns they wanted to use. I had them put in a spot that was nickname, but it was for their preferred name. And then every person who was there for transgender healthcare, I made it so that you had to put an alert, because people were doing alerts for it, but they weren't doing it for everybody. So I would go through every patient that we had that was there for HRT, and I would add an alert that said, this is this person's name, and this is this person's pronouns, so that no one would make any mistake, because an alert would pop up on the screen that would say, this is how you address this person, so that you're not going to dead name them or make them have a horrible doctor's appointment kind of experience and stuff. Were they for all Planned Parenthoods? I'm not sure. I just made it so that it was also like some things already existed in there, but I was like, we need an overhaul of this whole system because this is very important, and a lot of the work that they do at Planned Parenthood, more so than abortions or anything, is not only HRT, but like birth control and all of that stuff too. And So we did that stuff. So there was an alert that would pop up. When there were new patients, I would ask them, like, is it okay if we use your preferred name and your preferred pronouns when we address you in the waiting room? Or would you prefer we only do that when you're in the back? Because some people were not, presenting. So they were not ready to be in the waiting room and be called by their preferred name and stuff. So then I would make sure their alert said, use this name in the doctor's office part, but not in the waiting room and stuff like that. Yeah, they weren't out yet. And then I also made it so that I clarified on everything, because we had like miscommunications everywhere. So it would be like, oh, if someone's biological sex on their birth certificate and their driver's license has been changed, then we can change it in their system. But then some people were like, no, because we need to know what their biological sex is for healthcare reasons. So I argued about all of that shit too. And then we had like, I don't know, I was annoying. I was annoying. So like, when I do something, I try to put like 500% into it. So like, if someone came in and they were trans, and let's say they also were someone who could benefit from using a birth control, or they wanted to be on birth control, I made sure they knew all of the best options for trans people. Which is like, and I talked about that, and I'd be like, you know, if you're worried about having any kind of side effects, or if you want to stop your cycle or anything like that, here's how you can do it. And like, here are the ones that, you know, that you don't have to like feel dysphoric about your anatomy, because you won't have to use tampons, or like you won't have to use like a ring that goes into the vagina or anything like that. And like, all of that. So I made sure for all of those, I would explain all of this stuff to everybody. Anytime anybody came in that was there for blood work for HRT, I was like, oh, do you want anybody to go in the back with you and hold your hand or anything? Like, let me know. I'll be back there. I'll talk to you. I'll distract you, because I hate getting my blood work done too. So I was like a little support creature, and it was amazing. And I really liked that. And then we had like, if there was anyone who was trans who had a cervix, I was like, you know, it is really important that you still do your pap smear. If you're nervous about doing your pap smear, there is a way for them to like do a little bit of sedation in case you're really worried about dysphoria when that happens. So here's like, just ask for it and all of this stuff. So I was like, that's the way that I work. But then it also means that I make so much more work for myself, because before I left Planned Parenthood, I was like, you know, I enjoyed doing check-in and check-out. And then I also started working as someone that did like the workups and stuff in the back, and like asked everybody their medical history and all of that. But I was like, oh, like, I think we need someone who is in charge of like standardizing our entire HRT and our trans healthcare, because we're not all doing it the same, and some people at some of our locations are having bad experiences, and at other locations they're having good experiences, so we're obviously not communicating. So I was like, we need someone in charge of this. We need to hire someone specifically to be in charge of our trans healthcare, preferably someone who is trans, because that's representation and that's what we need. And also, like, that person is going to know more than a cis person. So they were thinking about that before I left, and they had kind of approached me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I was like, I would be happy to. However, I do think it is more well situated for someone who is trans when I'm cisgender, because I'm not going to have the proper perspective for this sort of thing. So I don't know if they ever ended up doing that, but I do know that I fucking rocked the boat and changed a lot of shit. And it's not that it was out of malice from anyone. It was a lot of people that were not as knowledgeable about trans stuff, or were not as knowledgeable about how to make people be comfortable with it, or like how to make sure that they were doing things properly, because a lot of people, when they were hired for Planned Parenthood, didn't even know like how certain birth controls worked, or like were not well educated in like sexual health care. I am weird, and I love reading about sexual health care. I love reading about everything like that, like. And then when it came to trans stuff, my best friend in college was trans, and I was on Tumblr a lot, so I knew trans people existed. And I was like the first person to ask my trans friend what their name and their pronouns were, because I was like, I'm pretty sure this person is being dead named and misgendered, so I'm going to ask them. So then once that happened, I was like, I read everything as much as I could. And so when I was working that job, I was like, this is super, super important, and we need to make sure that we fix it. So I put myself into I do too much, but it's just the way that it be. And that was a big rant about, like, probably sounding like I'm really cool and awesome, but mostly it was just really important and it needed to be done. So the moral of the story is Boba works too hard and puts a lot of effort, but also finds things to be very important. And it was better than Barnes & Noble because people were not rubbing shit on the walls. Thank you, Eclipse. My favorite thing that I invented while I was there, that they implemented across other places, were these little, like, plastic paper things. They were laminated, and they were pronouns, so it was she, her, he, him, they, them, or other. And the person, when I would call them up, I would call them by whatever information for their first appointment we had, whatever they wrote on the paper. And then I would give them this thing so that they could tell me what pronouns they preferred without me saying, hi, what are your pronouns, to, like, the entire office. And we did it for everybody. We did it for, you know, people that were there for birth control or people that were there for, like, testing, because you don't want to just, like, be like, oh, this person might have different pronouns or something. You do it across the board because anybody can have any pronouns that they want. So we did that piece of paper where people could point to it so they're not, like, outing themselves. And then I also was like, I was the sticky note queen. I'll go through 1,000 sticky notes and I'd be like, oh, I would write on the sticky note, like, what's your preferred name? What's your chosen name that you go by? And they would write it down, and then I could put it in the system and stuff. Planned Parenthood was great, though. I really, really loved working there. So, mother of trans daughter, really appreciate that you made some people's sons and daughters' experiences better. That job was my fucking... If I didn't start streaming, I would have done that forever. Because the thing that sucked was when COVID happened, we went online, so I wasn't really doing trans care anymore, which was what I was most excited about. I was starting to transition into doing trans healthcare because the workup is a lot different from everything else. So I was working on that. But that was kind of like what I was doing before I left, and I would have continued doing that because it was my favorite. What was I gonna say? But my favorite thing was there were two people that I specifically remember that are my favorite interactions I've ever had with anyone. And there was one where someone came in and they seemed like really, really nervous. They weren't there for an appointment or anything. And they were like, we had like a door that had a lock on it because of safety for Planned Parenthood. We also had glass because part of our training was there are people who will want to harm you because you work at Planned Parenthood. So we had a lot of safety things in place. So there were some times where people were like really upset because maybe they had an STD, maybe they came in to ask about abortion procedures, or maybe they were curious about something and they didn't want to say it in front of everyone. So we would have them come back behind the locked door and be like, oh, you know, what is it that you want to talk about? What are you here for? And so is asking for pronouns okay? You can be like, what pronouns do you use? I don't think that's usually that big of a deal. Anybody in chat want to like confirm or whatever? But one person came in, and this person will always be in my heart. Like, I just adored them. They came in, they looked really, really nervous, and I was like, oh, is there anything I can help you with? And they're like, oh, I'm just thinking about some things. I'm not, you know, I have some questions, but I'm kind of nervous. And I was like, oh, like, come on back and I'll talk to you. And they were like, oh, you know, like, do you do stuff for transgender people? And I was like, yeah, we do. And I explained everything. and they were like, oh, I just had some questions about it. And I could tell this person was probably interested in starting HRT, but was maybe nervous asking about it. And so I was like, if someone were to be interested in HRT, here's the first appointment, everything that happens. Here's how much it costs or how much your insurance might charge for it. Here's the entire appointment, like step by step. Here's the future appointments, everything that you could ever have questions about. And I said, you know, all of this stuff. And I was like, if you are interested in doing something like that, like, let me know. I'll set you up an appointment. I'll do it on, you know, a time when I know I'm going to be working the front, and I will handle everything from the moment that you get here until the moment that you leave, so that you are your most comfortable. This person was so sweet, and they were crying, and they were like, you know, that helps me so much. And then, like, I got them scheduled. They came in for their first appointment. They were so excited. I got everything started for them. And then each time that they came in, because we did every 3 months to start out with, people would come in to do their blood work, and then every 6 months. And I've always said my favorite thing was just watching this, like, snapshot photography, because I would see this like any person coming in for HRT, I would see every 3 months, and I would see this, like, still snapshot of this person throughout their transition and throughout their journey, and it was so beautiful and rewarding. And, like, this person specifically, like, the first time that they came in, they were like, oh, I got my ears pierced, do you like them? And I was like, oh, it looks so beautiful, like, it's so nice. And then, like, another time they came in and they were wearing, like, different clothes, and they were wearing, like, heels and stuff, and I was like, oh, you look so nice. And then there was, like, you know, another next time they started growing their hair out, and it was just, like, so beautiful and so rewarding to see. I'm crying too, Pip, I've got the tears. And then there was, like, another person who came in with their mom, and their mom was super supportive, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, just seeing the person coming in, starting and being so nervous, and then seeing every 3 months their progress, I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, the last time that you came in here, like, I can tell, like, your jawline has changed, your voice has changed. And I was like, you're not seeing that stuff because you're looking in the mirror every day and you're hearing your voice. But every 3 months when you come in, I see the progress, and I'm so proud and I'm so happy for you. And, like, I thought that was really special too, because when you are transitioning, you're not seeing that progress.
Stop! What does this
Ruminator, thank you so much. But the supportive parents too, that really got me, because they would, like, you know, they would correct themselves with the pronouns and stuff. And it was great. But just, like, oh my gosh, like, seeing people every 3 months was just so amazing. And, like, especially from, like, start, when, like, before they're on any hormones or anything, and then just seeing those changes as they happen and being like, oh my gosh, I can point out to you exactly what has changed since I saw you last. And, like, you can have that confidence of knowing that that has changed too. Like, you know, if someone was on testosterone, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, your voice is deeper, and, like, your weight has shifted in your jawline, your face looks different, like, you know, like, oh, you're looking more masculine and all of this stuff. And they would like, do you really think so? And I'm like, yes, like, I saw you 3 months ago and the change is so noticeable. And, like, did I say, oh my gosh, did I say thank you, Ruminator? Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. But, like, it's so special. It's so special. And, like, it is something that I miss so much from working there, was just, like, how rewarding it was to, like, see someone come in and not be their true self, and then see them slowly become that person, and, like, be able to tell them about it and be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like, you're having so much progress, like, look at this. And, like, hearing, like, you know, the other thing that I really liked was, like, some people would start out and they'd be like, oh, you know, for my pronouns, like, right now I'm comfortable with they, them. And then they'd come in another time and they'd be like, you know, they'd be, their hair would be long, they'd have makeup on, and they're like, I think I'm ready to use she, her. And I would be like, oh my god, I'm so happy for you. Because they'd be like, I'm ready. And it was so good. Like, oh my gosh. So good. And it was amazing. It was so rewarding. And I think, like, there was one that fucked me up. And it was this person came in with their wife, and it was like, you know, like this, and I'm sure, because I got pretty close to them while I was working there before I left, that they'd approve of this like description. But they came in kind of like this like tough guy, like they drove like a big truck, and their wife was there with them, and they were so nervous, and they were like, oh, I'm here for some trans healthcare. And I was like, all right, I got you. Like, do you have a chosen name that you'd like to go by? Do you have any pronouns? And they're like, not yet. And I was like, okay, well, let me know. And I said, and if you ever want to just use those with the doctor, you let me know. And they're like, okay, I don't think I'm ready yet, but maybe soon. And then they would come in like 3 months later, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to use my pronouns and my name with the doctor. And I was like, we got you. Like, and then they would come back, and it would be like they'd walk through that door, and then they'd get to be their chosen name, and they'd get to be their pronouns, and we'd be like cheering along with them, because all the girls that I worked with too were like so supportive of it too, and they like did their best to like support the person, and they did their best. Like, we'd still like, you know, occasionally accidentally misgender because we're looking at medical charts and things like that too, or like or we would use like, I dead named someone once, and I was like, oh my god, like I literally want to go dig a hole and live in it, because they had written something on the paper that was different from what we had in the system, and we didn't have an alert on, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm so sorry. And they went to leave, and it was raining. I was like, take my umbrella. They're like, I'm okay. And I was like, please take my umbrella. I dead named you today, and I need to feel better, and I'm sorry that I need to feel better, but also it's raining and I don't want you to get rained on. And they're like, okay, I'll take your umbrella. But so then that one person that I'm talking about, though, he came in with his wife, and then he was like, oh, you know, I'm ready to use my different name and my pronouns with the doctor. So then we had her come back, and we were talking to her, and she was like so excited. And her wife was so fucking cool and supportive. And her wife was like, how can I help? How can I do this? Can I help schedule the appointments and things like that? And I was like, yeah, we can do that. And then there came a time when she came in, and she had a wig, and she had like a nice dress on and shoes. Thank you, Rose. This is my favorite shit to talk about. So she came in, she had her long hair, she had her makeup on, she had her dress on, she had her shoes on, and I was like, who is this? Who is this? I'm so excited. And I was like, you look amazing, like you look great. She was so excited. And they would bring us like treats all the time. Her and her wife would bring us treats. They would bring us like donuts and stuff. And like when we transitioned to being online for the most part, I saw her again because I saw her name on the list. And I was like, I don't know when's the next time I'm going to get to see her. So I'm taking this call right the fuck now. And so I took the call, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. And she's like, oh, I'm so excited to see you. I didn't know if I'd get to see you again because now everything's online. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I at least got to see you like once while we've like moved on to doing this. And, you know, I wanted to make sure everything was okay and that you're doing okay. And so I got to see her one last time, like before I ended up quitting so I could stream full time. But she was just like, you know, she wrote me an email, and she was like, I just want you to know like how important and how special you were in this whole process. And like, she's like, I'm writing an email to your managers and stuff too, because like I would not have been able to do this without all of the help that you were able to give. And it was just like, if there's anything that I remember for the rest of my entire life, it's all of the stuff that I got to do there, because it was so fucking perfect. And it was just like so human and just so good. And it felt every day like that I got to like speak to someone that was coming in for that kind of stuff. I was like, this is like just the best thing ever. Like, I love this. Rob, thanks for the 25 months. And I hope this doesn't sound like me like stroking my own ego or anything, because it's not. It's more that I just loved doing that work so fucking much, and it was so important, and it was so special. And also for like anyone who is like also kind of in that process and stuff, there are people that are so fucking excited for you. Like, whenever I see someone who is like, oh, you know, like, I'm playing with gender, or like, oh, I want to wear this certain thing, or like, you know, I will fucking be you're such just your absolute cheerleader. I am fucking ride or die for you. Like, literally, I fucking love this shit. It's easy to say life-changing, but taking a moment to think that, yes, truly it was life-changing to that trans person. It was finally crossing that bridge in their life for the better. The people who came in when they are, you know, in their 40s and 50s, because that person was in their 40s and 50s. And they're like, you know, there was another person that I think was in their 70s that came in. And they were like, you know, my whole life, I've felt like something was different, but I've never been able to ever think about it until now. And that was like, I fucking sobbed. I quickly checked them in, and then my coworkers were like, you're gonna go cry, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And so I had to go in the other fucking room so I could cry. And then they'd be like, there she go crying again. And I'm like, I am crying again. Be like, you cry so fucking much. I just have a lot of feelings. I know elderly people transition stories are like, oh my god, those ones really fucking wrecked me. Those ones really got me. And like that person, every time they came in, I was like, they were so kind, and they just were like, I saw them starting to change too, and you know, become more outwards with their gender and stuff. And I was just like, those are things I'll treasure for the rest of my life. Like, I will never lose those. Those are just my most important memories and my most special memories ever. Like, I will always carry those with me. And just, it's so fucking good. It was so good. Like, that was I felt like I got to be an angel, you know? I felt like I got to do some, like, angel work, because I wanted to do the best that I could for all of these people and, like, be annoying for them. Because I was like, listen, I'll be your voice if you need to. I'll do it. It was so good. I loved it so much. That's definitely one of the things that I miss. Well, it is absolutely, like, if I stop streaming, I would love to do that again. The part that wrecks me with older people transitioning is if they say, oh, I've known I was X gender since I was a kid. Yeah, the one person that came in, they were like, you know, I felt like something was always different. And they're like, but I was so afraid because, you know, especially like people in their 60s and 70s now, like that, like, unfortunately, anything, you know, outside of the norm was, you could not even think about it at all. And so I think, like, the other thing that is something to be grateful for is how different things have become now, to where people can be comfortable, and we have these older generation people who are more comfortable with getting to be themselves and, like, getting to do that. And, like, you might be sad because you're like, you know, this person lived this long without getting to do this, but each older person that I talked to that transitioned was like, you know, no matter how old I am now and how many years I missed out on this, I'm not going to die without being myself. And I'm so grateful for that. And that is, like, it's bittersweet because it is like, you know, they missed out on those years or whatever. But it's also, you know, that they get to fulfill that. And it's very special. As a trans guy, I can say you were better than an angel. People like you are rare. Thank you very much. I am annoying. I'm 100% in the fucking... I'll fucking pick you back up. I'm here for you. Yeah, and it was not safe. I hope it changes more in academia too, because while it's more open out in the world, it's still deemed unprofessional and such in these spaces. Be annoying. Be an annoying boba. Be annoying. Be like, we need to change this. Get a fucking group together at school. Get a fucking group together. That's what I would say. Because when I was in school too, I was like, you know, telling the teachers, like, I was annoying. If my friend got misgendered in class, I was like, excuse me. I didn't say it in class unless they wanted me to. But I would be like, hey, you know, and this was all, my friend was like, yeah, it's fine if you tell the professor for me because I don't really like doing it. So I'd be like, hey, professor, like, my friend, you're misgendering them. This is their chosen name and this is their pronouns. Like, you know, if you have friends and you want to be annoying for them, ask if it's okay. Hey, can I be annoying for you? Can I be annoying? We go to a restaurant, they would say, hey ladies. I would say, my friend's a boy. My friend would be like, you fucking idiot. You don't have to correct the people at the restaurant. We're never going to see them again. And I would say, yeah, but it's important. It's important to me, and I know it's important to you. So yeah, I'm going to fucking tell them my friend is a boy. And they'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry. I'd be like, yeah, you fucking are. You can be sorry. Get it right next time. Also, like, you know, teaching, like, getting maybe restaurant, because in service industry, it's very much like, hey ladies, what can I get for you, blah 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 blah. When you kind of like tilt that on its axis a bit, people are like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't say that. So you can try that. It's so hard correcting people, yeah. But you can always ask friends too. Or if you're a friend, you can ask your friend, hey, is it okay if I correct people for you? And if so, how would you like me to do it? Do you have any tips for being annoying for yourself? I can be annoying for other people, but not for me. Know that the space that you take up, that's your space. And know that you can advocate for yourself, because you are worth being advocated for, and you are worth advocating for yourself. Like, be loud and be annoying and tell people like how it is, because if you're willing to do it too, then other people are willing to do it. And it's important.